Hi everybody, this is Shri and welcome back to my channel Vedic Living. Today we'll be talking about something very important that is happening in the sky towards the end of January. This is the transit of Uranus. Now this is very important because it usually has a lot of impact to events around the world. Last time Uranus stationed in the sky was September of 2023. And right after that, we saw that there was the war in Israel around October 7th. Now, whenever Uranus stations, it doesn't always have to be a war, but it does bring a sudden, unexpected event that we did not see coming at all every single time. So we are going to delve into this and see what it's going to bring us this time around. And I'm going to explain what stationing means. Before we go forward, I do want to remind you that my website, www.vedic-living.com, has a lot of articles and information on Vedic astrology, Hindu cosmology, and mythology. So make sure you go and visit that. Use the free chart calculator if you've never seen your chart. And you can also book a consultation with me on the same website. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, which starting this month, I will be sending out 2 newsletters every month. The very first one will be for the predictions for the upcoming month. And then I'll be sending out a second newsletter every month with a lot of information about a certain Vedic astrology concept. This month, I'll be talking about the nodes Rahu and Ketu, what they mean. What is the mythology? What is the psychology? What does it mean for Rahu and Ketu to be in Virgo and Pisces in your chart? So make sure you sign up for it because that second newsletter for this month will be going out in the next couple of days. Now let's go forward and talk about what the stationing of Uranus means. Now, before we go forward, let me talk a little bit about the planet Uranus. Now, in Vedic astrology, typically the outer planets are not used, but we have seen that the use of outer planets really does bring a big impact in events around the world. Let's talk about Uranus. When Uranus was discovered in the year 1781, that was the time frame when major industrial revolution had started. The steam engine was being invented at that time. So we have to remember, what does Uranus stand for? It stands for revolution, breaking through the norm and doing something brand new, inventing new things, sudden discoveries. And it also does rule technology. And we noticed that in the past couple of 100 years is when astrology started becoming more mainstream. It has a long way to go, and we hope it gets there someday. But I think it is being accepted more by the general public now because they understand that it is not just superstition. There's a lot of calculation and math that goes into astrology. And when we as astrologers look at the sky and start predicting things, we are looking at what happened at the same time in history. We are doing our research and we are bringing to you what our findings are. So when Uranus was discovered, that was around that time when Industrial Revolution started. So this was a very important turning point in the time of humanity. This is why whenever Uranus stations, and of course, just because Uranus was discovered in 1781 does not mean it wasn't there before. That's the reason why I said when you go back and look at the major events in Indian mythology or anywhere around the world, if you know the timing or the date, or if you can rectify the timing or the date, you can see that these outer planets were very pivotal at that time in those events. So every time Uranus stations, there is a major event that happens. And this is something that has to be, it is something unexpected. It is something that was sudden. It may have something to do with technology or space exploration. It may have something to do with wars. If Mars is involved in this particular transition, it won't always bring the same event. A lot depends on what is conjunct or aspecting Uranus at the time. So like I said, the last time around, I think it was the end of August, early September, when Uranus went retrograde. So it stationed and went retrograde. I'm going to explain what that means, but I just want to let you know that at that time when it went station, Mars was aspecting it. Mars' eighth aspect. The Vedic astrology aspects for Mars is 4 and 8. Mars' eighth aspect was on the Uranus at that time. So that does bring violence and war or Martian tendencies. So it a lot depends about on what is happening in the sky at that time. But Uranus by itself rules unexpected sudden events, and it did bring the war to us at that time. Now, what does it mean for planets to go retrograde or stationed or direct? So when we on this planet Earth look up at the sky, we see the planets moving forward. And when we say forward, as it's been explained in the Indian scriptures, it's that the planet is moving across the backdrop of the nakshatras. So, for example, when the Mahabharata war happened, it is mentioned in the scriptures that the sages at the time noted that Saturn was in the nakshatra Rohini. That's how they talked about it. Because all we know, we didn't look at the stars separately. We looked at them as nakshatras. So when you talk about a certain planet, we talk about where it is, like which nakshatra's backdrop it's in, whether it's going forward or backward. Now, what does it mean backward? Retrograde or backward motion of planets happen when the relative velocity of Earth is larger or faster than that particular planet in the ecliptic. When you talk about the ecliptic of the planet, it's going in various, the orbit of the planet is in various directions. So depending on the speed of the planet, sometimes Earth can be in a part of the ecliptic where it's going faster. Now, when that happens, that planet looks like it's going backwards. It's like if you're going in a car and you're going faster than the car next to you, it looks like that car is going backwards. It's not really. That car is also moving forward, but from our vantage point, it looks like it's moving backwards. That's a retrograde motion of the planet. And what happens is when a planet is direct and it goes retrograde, it doesn't just shift like that. For a little bit of a time, depending on how fast the planet is, it will look like it's stationed or it's standing still. So it's going forward, stationed, going backwards, and then it stations and goes forward. So between the direct and the retrograde motion, there are times when the planet is stationed. Now, this is very important as per Vedic astrology, because when a planet is stationed, it means that it is really important. It's telling us, look at me, pay attention to me. I'm trying to tell you something. So that degree mark where that planet is stationed is very important. And that's how we as astrologers look at that. And if we see that certain degree mark in a person's chart, and I'm going to tell you what degree mark Uranus is going to be stationed. But if you see that degree mark in your chart, then that means that there is some major event that is Uranus related happening in your life. And the energy or the nature of that event depends on where Uranus is stationed, what degree mark, what nakshatra it's in, what sign it's in, and what aspects of other planets are on it. It's the overall dignity of the planet that we need to look at. So now that you know what direct, retrograde, and stationed is, let's go forward and talk about this upcoming huge transit. On January 27th, Uranus is going to go direct. So it has been retrograde since last September 2023. When a planet is retrograde, things are typically tough on Earth. Usually when Jupiter is retrograde or one of these outer planets or Saturn is retrograde, it shows a time of challenge because a retrograde planet is asking us to reassess our actions from the past. It's a karmic review of everything we've done. So when a planet goes retrograde, it's making us revise things. Have we done the right actions? Is there anything that needs to be straightened out here karmically? So when it goes direct, things start getting better in the sense of whatever that issue was, it starts getting resolved. So as we have seen, the last few months of 2023, a lot of planets were retrograde, not only Uranus. Many planets were retrograde. But right now, only Uranus is retrograde because December 31st, Jupiter went direct. So now all the planets are direct except for Uranus. Uranus is going to go direct on January 27th. What does that mean? The few days before and about a week after, Uranus is going to be stationed, which means it looks like it's standing still in the sky. And then we'll start seeing it going forward. This is a very important juncture because every time a planet stations, it is pretty much the most important planet in the sky. In Vedic astrology, we talk about planets that are exalted. They're in their own sign of rulership. They're in Mula Trikona. They're in Vargotama status. They're in a Parivartana status. All of these give strength to the planets. But a stationed planet is the most important. So now January 27th, when Uranus is stationed in the sky, it's going to bring major events that are to do with Uranus. So first, let's talk about Uranus. It rules technology, it rules space, it rules advancements in all kinds of technological matters. It does rule earthquakes and earth changes and any kind of earth changes. In fact, it can be tsunamis or volcanic eruptions or any kind of earth changes. It can be major disturbance to the earth crust. Okay. And this has happened every time Uranus is stationed or it goes retrograde or it's aspected by difficult planets. We see major disturbances in the Earth's crust around the world. Every time, if you go back and look at every major earthquake we've had, Uranus was either aspected by another planet or it was stationed. So this is a very important thing to remember because I think on January 27th, when Uranus is stationed, and then between that point and April, and why do I say April? Because in April, there is another major Uranus conjunction. That's when Jupiter comes up to meet Uranus. Whenever Jupiter meets Uranus and that major conjunction happens, that's another big event. Why? Because Jupiter expands any planet that it comes in contact with. The fact that Jupiter is coming and meeting Uranus, it means that the energy of Uranus is going to be expanded. So that's the reason why we're saying between January 27th of 2024 and April of 2024, there are going to be major events that are flavored by Uranus around the world. Like I said, it can be earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, earth changes, floods, storms, sudden unexpected events in humanity, like it can be political events, events that have to do with violence, or it can be technological advancements, which we didn't see coming. Like right now, we know there's a lot of things that are in the works. It won't be any of that. This will be a sudden discovery, sudden event. And it doesn't always have to be bad, but usually Uranus brings us a shock factor with it. There's a shock. There's like, oh, I didn't know that was happening, or I didn't know that was going to happen. That's a kind of event that happens. Uranus does rule air travel, and it does rule planes and any kind of traveling kind of related things because that's technology, that's new discoveries. Now, where is Uranus going direct right now? It is in the sign of Aries. What is Aries? It rules pioneering. It rules new beginnings. This is really remarkable that this year, when we started the new year, January 1st, Jupiter went direct, and then Mercury went direct the next day. And now Uranus is going direct, all in the month of January, in the sign, and Jupiter and Uranus are both in the sign of Aries. So this is new beginnings. So even cures for diseases, because Aries contains the nakshatra Ashwini. And Ashwini, the rulers are the Ashwin Kumars. They are the ones who were the doctors or the medicinal gods, right? So the fact that these planets are going direct in Aries can mean there are going to be major cures for diseases around the world. Another thing also is Uranus is going direct in the sign or the nakshatra Bharani. Now, what is Bharani? Bharani's symbology is the womb. So what that means is that it is, something that is restricted. And through the birthing process, the baby is free, right? So it's breaking through the boundaries and it's becoming free after that. And that's why Uranus rules freedom. It rules breaking restrictions, breaking the norm. It rules uniqueness in an individual. Usually, if you have a strong Uranus in your chart, either on your ascendant or it's stationed, you're a very unique person in your family. People look at you and they say, oh, she did something nobody has ever done before, or he did something that was very unique. So that's what Uranus rules. So with the fact that it's going direct in Bharani, it means that around the world, we are going to see events that are breaking restriction. And this is the reason why Bharani is ruled by the god of death and karma, Yama. Yama is the ruler of Bharani, which means that there is a very special meaning of karmic action when it comes to Bharani. The fact that Uranus is going direct in the nakshatra Bharani means that we are going to see a great awakening. Uranus is called the Great Awakener, and Bharani nakshatra, by meaning or by symbology, means breaking through restrictions. So the fact that these two are coming together, it means that there's going to be a huge event which will bring about a great awakening. And it could be that something in the past, some event from the past is brought out for resolution, but it will be something we never saw before. And a lot depends on where this is happening. On January 27th, when Uranus stations, and remember, it's going to be a few days before that and a few days after that. When it is stationed at 24 degrees and 50 minutes of the sign Aries, which is in the nakshatra Bharani. So if you look at country charts or charts of people or leaders, world leaders, you can kind of understand who is getting affected by this transit. If anybody has planets at 24 degrees of Aries or Libra, then this transit will affect them. It'll bring a major event in their life. Could be good or bad, but it'll definitely be unexpected, unseen, and it's going to really bring a big change or awakening, great awakening into that person's life. Now, the last time this transit happened, when Uranus went from direct to retrograde, was, like I said, in early September 2023. At that time, Uranus was stationed at 28 degrees of Aries. And if you look at the chart of Israel and Palestine, both of them have planets at that degree mark. Israel had the nodes at around 20 degrees of Aries, and Palestine's sun was at 29 degrees of Libra. So it was the station Uranus was opposing it. So if you have planets in that conjunction degree or the opposition degree, plus or minus a degree, because that effect of Uranus can go across a little bit, not too much. It won't bleed across too much, but plus or minus 1 degree, I would say. So 24 degrees means if you have planets between 23 degrees and 25 degrees of Aries or Libra, this will affect you. And when I looked at planets in all the country charts, and of course, I don't have all the country charts of the world, I'm building my list. But when I compare the charts of various countries, I saw some that were really affected by this transit. Japan had a major aspect happening by this Uranus at 25 degrees. The country Turkey had also an aspect because in Turkey's chart, Venus, which is the 12th ruler, was getting aspected by the stationed Uranus. The Mediterranean area in general was affected. So if I, again, like I've said in my past too, there is going to be a major event in terms of earthquake or earth change or volcanic eruption in that area this year. But when I look at the stationed Uranus, I can see that it was affected. Another chart that was affected was India. I used the Independence Day chart for India or Bharat. And if you notice in that chart, Jupiter is at 25 degrees of Libra. It's pretty much exactly opposed by the stationed Uranus. So end of the month of January and until April, there's going to be major unexpected events in India. India should be very careful because this particular aspect of Jupiter, Jupiter rules the eighth house in India's chart. And eighth house is the house of death and transformation. So between the end of January and April of 2024, there's going to be major unexpected turmoil and events in India. So they should be careful. Now, another country that I noticed was also affected was Iceland. In Iceland's chart, moon is exactly at that degree mark. So Iceland should also be careful in terms of earth changes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and earth events. Or I'm not sure how their government is. There could be a new unexpected political upheaval or something on those lines. And again, this is between the end of January and April of 2024. One more chart that was majorly affected was Indonesia. And even the Southeast Asia area is very volatile in terms of astrology at this time of the year. So they have to be careful. Between end of January and April, in terms of sudden unexpected events, earth changes, earthquakes, political changes. It can be changes in the way they run the country. But these will not just be like day-to-day changes. This will be a sudden revolutionary groundbreaking. Remember Uranus. Uranus is not about just day-to-day mundane stuff. It likes to blast through the restrictions. So this will be a major advancement or a change in one of these countries. And in general, stationed Uranus is usually telling us to take notice to things that are around us and to really be careful in terms of decisions that we make around that time, because once the planet is direct, things are a little more smooth sailing. But the time frame when it is stationed or it's, in that little bit of a slow speed situation, that is when events can happen or changes can happen. And this has been constantly over and over mentioned in our Puranas, in our Vedas, in Hindu cosmology and mythology. We have noticed that this was mentioned many times. So with that being said, let's hope for the best. Let's hope that all the wonderful changes that Uranus station brings will be technology related or advancement related for humanity. And let's hope that nothing untoward or difficult happens during this time. So the event that is happening is waking us up to something that we'd never noticed before. So yes, it can shake things up for a little bit, but when everything settles down, major revolutionary change will happen on this planet. So thank you once again for coming to my channel, and I'll see you in my next video.